The email arrived at 9:47 a.m. on a Tuesday that would change everything. Congratulations to Vivian Cole on her promotion to Senior Vice President of Strategic Operations. I stared at my screen, reading the words 3 times before they sank in. This was it. The position I'd worked 6 years to earn. 60-hour weeks, sacrifice weekends, presentations that kept me up until 3 a.m. perfecting every slide. I'd bled for this company, and finally, they'd recognized it. My phone buzzed with congratulations from colleagues. The executive floor erupted in polite applause when I walked past. Champagne appeared in the conference room by noon. Everyone celebrated. Everyone except Harper Lane. She stood by the window, back rigid, champagne flute untouched in her hand. When our eyes met, I saw something that made my stomach tighten. Not disappointment, not even jealousy. Something darker, colder, more calculated. Harper had wanted this promotion, expected it. She'd been with the company 8 years, to my 6, had more connections, more political savvy. But I'd had better results, cleaner deals, and clients who specifically requested me. Merit won. At least, that's what I believed that day. Harper smiled at me across the room. It was the smile of a shark circling wounded prey. I should have recognized the warning. Instead, I smiled back and raised my glass. My first mistake. 2. The rumors started within 48 hours. Whispers in the break room that stopped when I entered. Sideways glances in meetings. Knowing smirks from people who'd congratulated me days before. Then Sarah from accounting pulled me aside, face flushed with embarrassment. Vivian, I need to tell you something. People are saying, they're saying you slept with Richard Chun to get the promotion. Richard Chun, our married CEO, a man I'd barely spoken to outside of quarterly reviews. My blood turned to ice. That's insane. Who's saying this? Sarah looked uncomfortable. It started with Harper. She mentioned it to Jennifer, who told Marcus, who told everyone else. Harper said she saw you leaving Richard's hotel room at the Miami conference last month. I'd been in Miami. So had Richard. So had 200 other company employees. I'd never been in his hotel room. Never even been on his floor. Sarah, that's a complete lie. I can prove I was nowhere near his room. I believe you, she interrupted quickly. But Vivian, people are talking. And Harper's been very convincing. She says she's just concerned about company integrity, that she wants to protect you from rumors. But every time she protects you, the rumors spread wider. I found Harper in her office an hour later. She looked up from her computer, expression perfectly innocent. Vivian, congratulations again. How are you settling into the new role? Stop spreading lies about me. Her eyes widened with manufactured shock. Excuse me? I don't know what you're talking about. 3. You've been telling people I slept with Richard Chun. Oh, Vivian. Her voice dripped with false sympathy. I never said that. I simply mentioned that I saw you in the hotel hallway near the executive floor. People drew their own conclusions. If there's nothing to hide, why are you so defensive? She was good. So good that for a moment, I doubted my own memory of that night. You're lying, I said, but my voice wavered. Am I? Harper smiled. Or are you just paranoid because you know how it looks? Young woman, sudden promotion, married CEO. People talk. It's not my fault if the optics are bad. I left her office shaking with rage and something worse, fear. She planted doubt so skillfully that even I was questioning events I knew were true. That was just the beginning. 2 weeks later, I had the most important presentation of my career. New client worth $40 million. The entire board would attend. I prepared for a month, rehearsed every line, anticipated every question. The night before, I'd saved everything to the company server and my laptop in a USB drive. Triple backup. Paranoid, maybe, but necessary. When I arrived at the conference room that morning, my heart was racing with adrenaline and confidence. I connected my laptop, opened the presentation file. Blank. Completely blank. 40 slides reduced to nothing. I grabbed my USB drive with shaking hands. Same thing. Corrupted. Empty. Gone. Technical difficulties. Harper's voice came from behind me. She'd entered so quietly I hadn't heard her. She stood there in her perfect designer suit, tablet in hand, smile playing at the corners of her mouth. 4. My presentation. It's gone. All of it. I pulled up the server backup, fingers flying across the keyboard, sweat beading on my forehead. Also blank. Impossible. I checked it last night. That's unfortunate, Harper said, her tone suggesting it was anything but. The board's waiting. You have 5 minutes. 5 minutes to recreate a month's work. The presentation was a disaster. I stumbled through from memory, missing key data points, fumbling statistics. The client looked confused. The board looked disappointed. Richardson looked like he regretted promoting me. Afterward, Harper cornered me in the hallway. You know, Vivian, maybe you're not ready for this level of responsibility. It's okay to admit when you're in over your head. That's when I knew. Not suspected, knew. She deleted my files, somehow accessed my accounts and sabotaged me deliberately. But I had no proof. Security logs would show nothing because Harper was too smart for that. She probably hired someone external, used a VPN, covered every digital footprint. This was you, I said quietly. Prove it. Harper's smile widened. You sound paranoid, Vivian. First the rumors about Richard. Now you're accusing colleagues of sabotage. Maybe you need a vacation. Some rest. The stress of the new position seems to be affecting you. She walked away, heels clicking on marble, and I understood with perfect clarity. This was war. A war I was losing. That night, I sat in my apartment staring at my laptop screen, replaying every interaction with Harper. Every smile, every congratulations, every moment I thought we were colleagues in a competitive but fair environment. I'd been so naive, so stupidly, blindly naive. 5. Harper didn't need weapons or violence. She was destroying me with paper cuts. 1,000 tiny cuts that didn't look like attacks until you were bleeding out on the floor. I vowed 2 things that night. Silence and strategy. No more confrontations. No more accusations I couldn't prove. I would watch, learn, and wait for my opportunity. Harper mistook my silence for weakness. That was her first real mistake. 3 weeks later, she made her boldest move yet. A complex financial trade came across my desk for approval. Standard procedure, except the numbers felt slightly off. I spent hours reviewing the documentation, checking and rechecking the figures. Everything seemed legitimate. The client was verified. The accounts matched. The regulatory paperwork was pristine. I signed off. It was fraud. Elaborate, carefully constructed fraud that implicated me as the approving executive. Documents had been manipulated so subtly that I'd missed it. The scheme was designed to funnel money through shell corporations, and my signature authorized the entire operation. When the SEC investigators arrived a week later, they went straight to my office. Ms. Cole, we need to discuss these transactions you approved. I pulled up the files, dread pooling in my stomach as I saw what I'd actually signed. Numbers that didn't match my memory. Accounts that didn't exist. My signature on documents that were clearly fraudulent. This isn't what I approved. Someone changed the files after I signed. Ms. Cole, we have the originals with your signature. The investigator's tone was sympathetic but firm. Whether you were complicit or negligent, you're responsible. Harper watched from across the office floor as security escorted me out. The perp walk was designed for maximum humiliation. Past every desk, every colleague I'd worked with, every person who'd once respected me. Harper stood near the elevator, expression perfectly crafted. Shock, sadness, disappointment. When our eyes met, she mouthed something. You were never competition. Security confiscated my badge, my laptop, my access to everything I'd built. The company lawyer informed me I was fired, effective immediately. Legal action was pending. My career was over. Outside, photographers waited. Someone had tipped them off. The headlines wrote themselves, rising executive arrested in fraud scandal. My face on every business news site, every financial blog. Disgraced, destroyed, finished. I'd lost everything. My job, my reputation, my future. The SEC investigation cleared me eventually. They found discrepancies in the documentation, evidence of tampering. But clearing my name legally didn't restore my reputation. The damage was done. No company would touch me. My name was poison. I spent weeks in my apartment, curtains drawn, phone off, spiraling into darkness. The despair was suffocating, crushing. I'd worked so hard, sacrificed so much, and Harper had destroyed it all with calculated precision. Then the messages started. Anonymous emails from untraceable accounts. You were never competition. Did you really think you could win? How does it feel to lose everything? I barely had to try. Harper, gloating from the safety of anonymity. Twisting the knife while I bled. That should have broken me completely. Instead, it reignited something I thought was dead. Not hope. Something colder. More dangerous. Rage. I stopped crying and started investigating. If Harper could destroy me, she'd done it before. People like her don't wake up one day and decide to ruin someone. They practice. They refine. They leave bodies behind them. I hired a private investigator with the last of my savings, a woman named Rita Chun who specialized in corporate malfeasance. Find everything on Harper Lane. Every job she's held. Every colleague she's worked with. Every person who might have crossed her path and disappeared. Rita delivered 3 weeks later. The file was extensive and damning. Harper had worked at 4 companies before ours. At each one, a promising young executive had suffered a mysterious career-ending scandal shortly after competing with Harper for a promotion. At Davidson & Partners, Michael Torres, accused of sexual harassment, fired and blacklisted, claims he was framed. No one believed him. At Sterling Finance, Amanda Liu, caught in an insider trading scheme remarkably similar to mine. She maintained her innocence. No one listened. At Westbrook Consulting, James Park, discovered with falsified credentials. Except he hadn't falsified anything. Someone else had altered his records. The pattern was undeniable. Harper was a serial career killer. But the most disturbing discovery was buried at the bottom of Rita's report. 7 years ago, at her first company, a business rival named Catherine Wells had confronted Harper about stolen client information. 2 weeks later, Catherine was found dead in her apartment, officially ruled an accidental overdose. But Catherine's family insisted she never used drugs. The police investigation had been perfunctory. No evidence of foul play. No signs of struggle. A tragic accident. Closed case. Except Rita had found something the police missed. Catherine's laptop, sold at an estate sale, contained emails backing up everything to a personal account. In those emails, evidence that Harper had been systematically stealing client contacts and poisoning relationships. More damning, Catherine had scheduled a meeting with Harper's CEO for the day after her death. She'd written her sister, "I'm finally going to expose Harper tomorrow. I have proof. This ends." It never ended. Catherine died. Harper was promoted. The theft was never discovered. I stared at those emails for hours, hands shaking. Harper wasn't just ruthless. She was dangerous. Potentially deadly. Any sane person would have gone to the police immediately. But I wasn't sane anymore. I was someone who'd lost everything, someone who'd been pushed so far into the darkness that the only way out was through. I needed more than justice. I needed revenge. But I couldn't do this alone. Rita connected me with 2 other people, Marcus Webb, a tech genius who'd worked at Sterling Finance and watched Harper destroy Amanda Liu. He tried to expose her then, but couldn't prove anything. He'd been quietly gathering data on Harper ever since, waiting for an opportunity. And Detective Sarah Mendez, who'd worked Catherine's case 7 years ago and never believed the overdose ruling. She'd been forced to close the investigation but never stopped wondering. The 3 of them sat in my apartment. Catherine's files spread across my coffee table, and I laid out my plan. "We can't just expose her," I said. "She's too careful. Any evidence we gather, she'll have an explanation. She'll lawyer up, play victim, claim we're obsessed with destroying a successful woman out of jealousy." Marcus nodded. "She's covered her tracks at every company. Digital footprints erased. Witnesses intimidated into silence. She's a ghost. So we don't expose her," Detective Mendez said slowly, understanding dawning. "We make her expose herself." "Exactly." I pulled up Harper's social media, her perfect corporate persona. Harper's weakness isn't that she's sloppy. It's that she's arrogant. She thinks she's untouchable. We use that. The plan was complex, dangerous, and possibly illegal. But I was past caring about legal niceties. Harper had destroyed lives without consequence. It was time for consequences. Phase 1, befriend her again. I started small. A LinkedIn message. "Harper, I know we ended on bad terms. I was angry about losing my job and blamed you unfairly. I've had time to reflect. Would you be open to coffee? I'd like to apologize. I expected her to ignore it. Instead, she responded within an hour. Of course, Vivian. I've been worried about you. I always knew you weren't responsible for that fraud. Coffee sounds wonderful. She couldn't resist. The chance to gloat, to see me broken, was too tempting. We met at an upscale cafe in Midtown. I dressed down, cheaper clothes, less makeup, the appearance of someone who'd fallen far. Harper dressed to kill in designer everything. Vivian! She embraced me like we were old friends. You look, well, considering everything you've been through. How are you managing? It's been hard, I said, letting my voice crack slightly. I lost everything, Harper. My career, my reputation, my savings paying lawyers. I've been applying everywhere, but no one will hire me. I'm thinking about leaving the city, starting over somewhere no one knows my name. Sympathy played across Harper's face, fake as a $3 bill. That's terrible. If there's anything I can do to help. Actually, there is. I leaned forward, playing desperate. Could you maybe put in a good word for me somewhere? You're so well connected. Even just an entry-level position. I'm not proud anymore. I just need work. Hook baited. Harper's eyes gleamed. This was exactly what she wanted. Me broken, begging, acknowledging her superiority. I'll see what I can do, she promised. We should stay in touch. Have lunch regularly. I want to support you through this difficult time. Over the next 6 weeks, we had lunch every Tuesday. I played my role perfectly, the defeated rival, grateful for scraps of attention, hanging on her every word. And Harper, intoxicated by her complete victory, started talking. She couldn't help herself. She'd spent years being careful, hiding her brilliance at manipulation. Now, with me as her broken audience, she wanted credit. The thing about corporate politics, she said over sushi one afternoon, is that everyone's playing checkers while thinking it's chess. You just have to be 3 moves ahead, anticipate reactions, control narratives. Like with my presentation, I asked carefully, the one that corrupted? She smiled, not confirming or denying. Technical difficulties happen to everyone, especially people who don't triple-check their backups on secure servers. You relied too much on technology. Each lunch, she revealed a little more. Never enough for a confession, but enough to show her hand. The recorder in my purse captured everything. The fraud scheme you got caught in was elegant, she said another time. The beauty of financial manipulation is that it's all about documentation. Change the right papers, cover the right tracks, and suddenly someone else is holding the bag. It's almost like someone planned it specifically to implicate me, I said, watching her reaction. Almost, Harper agreed, smirking into her wine glass. But that would require someone very clever, wouldn't it? Someone who understood financial systems intimately, knew how to manipulate approval processes, and had access to executive files. That's a very specific skill set. She was enjoying this, dancing right up to the line of confession, high on the thrill of outwitting me even now. What Harper didn't know, every lunch was recorded, every smirk, every veiled admission, every moment of gloating. But recordings alone weren't enough. I needed more. I needed her to truly destroy herself. That's when phase 2 began, her fiancé. Malcolm Pierce was Harper's perfect accessory. Wealthy family, Harvard MBA investment banker. Their engagement had been announced in the society pages. They looked perfect together, 2 ambitious, beautiful people destined for the penthouse suite of life. But perfection is usually a lie. Marcus hacked Harper's home computer, legally gray, but morally justified. What he found was illuminating. Harper's emails to Malcolm were cold, transactional. Discussions of optics and strategic advantage. Her messages to friends were more honest. Malcolm's family connections will secure the Whitmore account. 2 more years of a charade, and I'll have everything positioned perfectly. She was using him. Malcolm might have been complicit, or he might have been another victim. Either way, he was a pressure point. I engineered a chance meeting at Malcolm's favorite coffee shop near his office. Accidentally spilled coffee on him, apologized profusely, bought him a replacement. We talked. He was charming, attentive, and clearly curious about the disheveled woman who seemed vaguely familiar. Do I know you? he asked finally. I think we met at a charity event Harper organized. I'm Vivian Cole. Recognition and discomfort flashed across his face. Oh, Harper mentioned you. The executive who got fired for fraud. That she supposedly had nothing to do with, I said carefully, watching his reaction. What's that supposed to mean? I could have lied, manipulated, played games. Instead, I chose honesty. Malcolm, I'm going to tell you something, and you're not going to believe me. But I want you to verify it yourself. Harper Lane is not who you think she is. She's a serial manipulator who destroys anyone in her way. She destroyed my career. She's destroyed others. And she's using you. I laid it out. Catherine Wells, Amanda Liu, Michael Torres, the pattern of bodies behind Harper's success. I gave him Rita's contact information, Marcus's findings, everything. Verify it yourself, I said. Don't take my word. But once you see the truth, you'll realize she doesn't love you. She loves what you represent. Access, connections, social capital. Malcolm looked angry. This is pathetic. Harper told me you might try something like this. You're obsessed with her. You can't accept that you failed on your own merit. Maybe. I stood to leave. But ask yourself this. Does Harper ever talk about loving you? Or does she talk about what you'll achieve together? What doors you'll open? What advantages you bring? I walked away, planting the seed of doubt. It would either grow or die. 3 days later, Malcolm called me. I looked into Catherine Wells. His voice was strained. The timing of her death, the meeting she'd scheduled, the promotion Harper got immediately after. It's concerning. And the others? I verified too. Michael Torres maintains his innocence. The harassment claims against him came from an anonymous source who later recanted but was never identified. Amanda Liu is still fighting to clear her name. Silence stretched between us. There's more, Malcolm continued. I started paying attention to how Harper talks about her career. About me. You were right. It's always transactional. Strategic. I confronted her last night, asked her directly if she loved me. She looked confused, like it was an irrelevant question. I'm sorry, I said, meaning it. He was collateral damage, but necessary. She's going to know you're suspicious now. Let her know. Malcolm's voice hardened. What do you need from me? Phase 3, corporate resurrection. Through Rita's connections, I'd been brought back to my old company, not publicly, not as an executive, but as a confidential consultant to the board. They were investigating irregularities in Harper's division. Millions in questionable transactions. Client complaints that had been buried. Employees who transferred out citing. Hostile work environment, but were afraid to elaborate. I'd been brought in to audit Harper's entire operation because I knew her methods intimately. It was delicious irony. The woman she'd destroyed was now investigating her from the shadows. What I found was damning. Harper had built an empire on stolen credit, buried mistakes, and sacrificed subordinates. For every success attributed to her, there was someone else who'd done the actual work. But she'd been meticulous about covering tracks. Almost every piece of evidence was circumstantial. We needed something concrete. That's when Marcus earned his paycheck. I can get into her office computer, he said during one of our late-night strategy sessions. Legally questionable, admissible in court? Probably not. But useful for knowing where to look for legitimate evidence. Absolutely. He installed keylogging software through a phishing email, so sophisticated, even I almost clicked it. Within a week, we had Harper's passwords, her private emails, her actual work files. And there it was. A folder buried in encrypted storage, insurance. It contained evidence of every manipulation, every scheme, every person she destroyed. Copies of documents she'd forged. Communications showing premeditation. Even notes about Catherine Wells. Overdose angle perfect. Untraceable. Problem solved. She kept receipts on everyone, including herself. Insurance in case she ever needed leverage or alibis. It was simultaneously brilliant and insane. We had everything, but we couldn't use it directly because it was obtained illegally. Instead, we used it as a roadmap. Every piece of legitimate evidence we could find, we documented through proper channels. Anonymous tips led investigators to look in specific places. Whistleblowers came forward after careful outreach. Patterns emerged that couldn't be ignored. Meanwhile, Harper was starting to notice things going wrong. Small things at first. A client meeting that went badly after someone had already contacted them with concerns. A financial audit that found discrepancies she thought were buried. Documents from years ago, suddenly requested by the board. She became paranoid, started accusing colleagues of spying, changed her passwords weekly, checked her office for bugs. She was right to be paranoid. We were everywhere. But the beauty of our operation was that it looked organic. Natural consequences of her years of corruption finally catching up. No obvious vendetta. Just dominoes falling. Harper's breaking point came faster than I'd anticipated. The stress got to her. She started making mistakes, real mistakes, not planted ones. Snapping at executives. Missing deadlines. Her perfect veneer cracking. Malcolm broke off the engagement publicly, citing incompatible values in a statement that was diplomatically vicious. Harper tried to control that narrative but couldn't. Malcolm had shared enough doubts with mutual friends that people started questioning her. Then the police reopened Catherine Wells's case. New evidence has come to light, Detective Mendez announced at a press conference I watched from my apartment, whiskey in hand. We're reviewing the circumstances of Ms. Wells's death and examining potential connections to corporate malfeasance. Harper's name wasn't mentioned yet, but everyone in the industry knew. The whispers started immediately, and Harper, in her paranoia, made the fatal mistake of trying to preemptively discredit the investigation. She gave an interview claiming Catherine had been unstable, that she'd struggled with addiction, things that were provably false and sounded suspiciously like victim blaming. Public opinion turned. The internet is unforgiving of women who attack other women, especially dead ones. Harper's social media became a war zone. Her company started receiving calls demanding her termination. I saw her once during this period, accidentally on purpose in the lobby of our old building. I was there for a consulting meeting. She was there looking haunted, exhausted, paranoid. Our eyes met across the marble expanse. I smiled, just smiled, not gloating, not triumphant, just present, a reminder that I'd survived her best efforts to destroy me. Her face went pale. She stumbled, actually stumbled, and had to catch herself on a column. Then she ran, literally ran out of the building. Because in that moment, she understood. Not the specifics, but the shape of it. This wasn't random. This wasn't karma. This was orchestrated. And the only person with motivation, capability, and apparent means was the woman she destroyed. Me. Harper's unraveling accelerated. She started calling in sick, missing meetings. Her assistant quit, citing erratic behavior. Colleagues whispered about finding her in her office at 2 a.m., staring at her computer screen, jumping at shadows. The paranoia became self-fulfilling. The more she suspected surveillance, the more suspicious she acted. The more suspicious she acted, the more people watched her. The more people watched, the more her mistakes became visible. It was beautiful. Terrible, but beautiful. Then came the boardroom execution. A special meeting called to address irregularities in the Strategic Operations Division. Harper wasn't told it was about her specifically. She walked in expecting to deflect attention elsewhere, to sacrifice a subordinate if necessary. Instead, she found the entire board, the company's legal team, an SEC representative, and one empty chair. For her. Ms. Lane, please sit down. The CEO's voice was ice. We need to discuss several concerning matters that have come to our attention. They laid it out methodically. Years of forged documents, now verified through forensic analysis. Client complaints that had been systematically buried, now resurfaced through subpoenas. Financial irregularities in accounts she controlled. Testimony from former employees about hostile retaliation. And the kicker, her own emails, obtained through legitimate legal discovery after the SEC opened an investigation. Emails where she discussed neutralizing competitors, managing problematic employees, controlling narratives. Not quite confessions, but damning in context. Harper tried to defend herself, claimed she was being framed, that this was a conspiracy, that someone was targeting her. Who would do that, Ms. Lane? The CEO asked. Perhaps someone you destroyed? Her eyes darted around the room, looking for allies. There were none. Everyone had heard the rumors, seen the evidence, felt the relief that it was finally her turn in the spotlight. You're fired, the CEO said simply. Effective immediately. Security will escort you out. Legal proceedings will follow. We're cooperating fully with the SEC investigation and the police inquiry into Catherine Wells's death. The perp walk was public. Cameras everywhere. Her face on every screen. Disgraced executive fired amid fraud and possible murder investigation. Karma is poetic sometimes. But I wasn't done. Firing wasn't enough. Legal consequences weren't enough. I wanted Harper to feel what I'd felt. The suffocating despair. The crushing weight of losing everything. The knowledge that your own actions led to your destruction. Over the following weeks, Harper's life collapsed systematically. Her professional reputation was destroyed. Her social circle evaporated. Her family distanced themselves from the scandal. She couldn't get another job. Couldn't rebuild. Her name was poison. Just like mine had been. But worse. Because while I'd been innocent, Harper was guilty. And everyone knew it. The psychological warfare was subtle. Anonymous messages, mimicking the ones she'd sent me. You were never as smart as you thought. Did you really think you'd get away with it? How does it feel to lose everything? I barely had to try. She'd see me in public occasionally. Never close enough to confront. Just close enough to remind her I existed. I was in the coffee shop she frequented. At the gym she went to. Walking past her apartment. Never threatening. Never illegal. Just present. A ghost haunting her guilt. Harper's mental state deteriorated rapidly. Friends reported she developed insomnia, jumping at every noise. Panic attacks in public. Convinced she was being followed, watched, targeted. She was right, of course. But the surveillance was psychological more than physical. Marcus tracked her digital footprint, ensuring she saw certain news articles, certain social media posts. Rita's contacts made sure the right people knew where Harper was, creating the impression of inescapable attention. Detective Mendez kept the Wells investigation active, calling Harper in for questioning regularly. Legal but exhausting. Each interrogation chipping away at her composure. And I simply existed. Visibly, publicly. Rebuilding my career, my reputation, my life. Everything Harper had tried to permanently destroy, I reclaimed. That was the real torture. Not that she'd fallen, but that I'd risen. 2 months after her firing, Harper tried to call me. I watched my phone ring, her name on the screen, and let it go to voicemail. She called 6 more times that day. I blocked her number. She tried email. Blocked. Social media. Blocked. She wanted closure. Confrontation. Some kind of catharsis. I gave her nothing but silence. Because that's what she'd given Catherine Wells, Amanda Liu, Michael Torres, and me. Silence and destruction. Then came the breakdown. Harper showed up at my apartment building at 3 a.m. Security footage would later show, pressing every buzzer until someone let her in. She pounded on my door, screaming, "I know you're in there, Vivian. I know this is you. You destroyed me. You're a monster." I called the police. They arrived to find Harper in the hallway, disheveled, sobbing, incoherent, rambling about conspiracies and surveillance and being framed. They asked if I wanted to press charges for harassment. I declined. She needs help, I told the officers, voice full of compassionate concern. Not legal trouble. She's clearly unwell. That restraining order went on her record anyway. More evidence of instability. More proof that Harper Lane, once a rising corporate star, had completely unraveled. A week later, Harper was admitted to a psychiatric facility. Voluntarily, technically. Her family had staged an intervention after she'd been found wandering the financial district at dawn, trying to get into our old office building, insisting she needed to fix everything and prove she wasn't the monster. No public drama. No news coverage. Just quiet, complete destruction. She was alive. Not in prison. The evidence against her, while damning professionally, wasn't quite enough for criminal charges beyond fraud, and even that was tied up in legal complexity. But she was destroyed in every way that mattered. Her career ended. Her reputation ruined. Her sanity fractured. Her understanding of reality shattered by the knowledge that someone she dismissed as weak had orchestrated her complete downfall. And she would spend years wondering, how much of it had I actually controlled, and how much had simply been her own actions catching up to her? That uncertainty, that question mark, was the final knife twist. Because the truth was complicated. Yes, I guided events, gathered evidence, coordinated exposure. But Harper's real enemy wasn't me. It was herself, her arrogance, her cruelty, her need to destroy others to feel powerful. I'd simply held up a mirror and made her look. 3 months after Harper's admission to the facility, I received a call from the CEO. Vivian, I'd like to discuss something with you. Could you come in tomorrow? I walked into that building, my old building, the one I'd been escorted out of in disgrace, with my head high, past the security desk where they'd confiscated my badge, past the offices where colleagues had whispered about my scandal, into the elevator that led to the executive floor, to the office that had briefly been mine, the office Harper had occupied after my firing. We've completed our internal investigation, the CEO said, and we owe you an apology. The fraud scheme that led to your termination was clearly orchestrated by Harper Lane. You were a victim, not a perpetrator. We'd like to offer you reinstatement, full back pay for the time you were terminated, and a promotion, Senior Vice President of Strategic Operations, the position you earned before Harper's interference. I looked out the window at the skyline, the same view I'd had for 3 weeks before Harper destroyed everything, the same view Harper had enjoyed for months while I'd suffered. I accept, I said. The paperwork was finalized within a week. My reputation formally restored. My career not just resurrected but elevated. Articles were written about my comeback. Wrongfully terminated executive returns to lead division. I was painted as a survivor, a victim of corporate sabotage who'd fought her way back. All true, just not the complete truth. The complete truth was darker, more complicated. I'd become something Harper had made me become. Someone capable of cold, calculated revenge. Someone who could manipulate situations and destroy lives. I'd looked into the abyss of corporate warfare, and the abyss had looked back. And I'd won. On my first day back, I walked into that corner office, sat in the chair that should have been mine all along, looked at the skyline stretching endlessly before me, and I thought about Harper, sedated in a facility somewhere, wrestling with demons, partly of my creation. I thought about Catherine Wells, dead 7 years, finally avenged. About Amanda, Michael, and the others, their names cleared by Harper's exposure. I thought about the cost of victory, the person I'd had to become, the lines I'd crossed, the moral flexibility I'd developed. Was I better than Harper? Yes. I'd never killed anyone, never destroyed people for sport, never targeted the innocent. But was I good? That was a harder question. I'd orchestrated someone's psychological breakdown, systematically dismantled a life, taken satisfaction in watching someone suffer. Justice and revenge are close cousins, sometimes indistinguishable. I told myself this was justice, holding Harper accountable, protecting future victims, making sure she could never destroy another person's life. All true, but it was also revenge. Personal, calculated, satisfying revenge. And I wasn't sure I felt guilty about that. Maybe that made me a monster too. Just a more justified one. My phone buzzed. Marcus texting. Congratulations on the new office. Drinks tonight to celebrate. Then Rita heard about the promotion. Well deserved. You earned it. And Detective Mendez. The Wells family sends their thanks. Catherine's case is officially closed with new conclusions. Harper's name is attached. It's not much, but it's something. I'd built something from my destruction. Not just a career, but a network of people who'd been victims, who'd been overlooked, who'd been told their pain didn't matter. We'd formed something powerful, something protective, something possibly dangerous. Because now I knew how to destroy people systematically, how to manipulate systems, how to turn someone's strengths into weapons, against themselves. And that knowledge didn't disappear just because Harper was gone. I thought about the executive down the hall who'd sexually harassed 3 assistants and gotten away with it due to his family connections. About the CFO who'd stolen credit for his team's work for a decade. About the board member who'd buried discrimination complaints. Power didn't corrupt. It revealed. And what it had revealed in me was a capacity for calculated destruction that both frightened and empowered me. I could be a protector or a predator. The choice was mine. My assistant knocked on the door. Miss Cole, your first meeting is in 10 minutes. The team is excited to have you back. Thank you. I'll be right there. I stood, smoothed my suit, and checked my reflection in the window. The woman looking back at me was different from the one who'd been escorted out 6 months ago. Harder, wiser, more dangerous. Harper had tried to destroy me. Instead, she'd forged me into something stronger. Something she should have feared from the beginning. I picked up my tablet and headed to the conference room. As I walked through the office, people nodded respectfully, some with genuine warmth, others with cautious wariness. They'd heard rumors about Harper's downfall, about my role in it, though nothing could be proven. I was a survivor, a phoenix risen from ashes, but I was also a warning. Cross me at your peril. The meeting was productive. My team was talented, eager, relieved to have leadership that valued competence over politics. We discussed strategies, reviewed projects, planned for the quarter ahead. Professional. Normal. Except I found myself analyzing everyone, watching for signs of manipulation, identifying potential threats before they materialized, seeing 3 moves ahead, just like Harper had taught me. After work, I met Marcus, Rita, and Sarah at an upscale bar in Tribeca. We toasted to my reinstatement, to justice, to Catherine Wells's memory finally honored. So what now? Marcus asked. You've got your career back. Harper's neutralized. The bad guy lost. Happy ending. I swirled my whiskey, considering. There are other Harpers out there. Other people who destroy careers and lives without consequence. Other victims who don't have the resources or knowledge to fight back. You thinking of starting a side business? Rita raised an eyebrow. Vigilante corporate justice? More like selective consulting, I said carefully. Helping people who've been targeted by workplace predators. Gathering evidence the right way. Connecting victims. Making sure the Harpers of the world face consequences. Sarah, the detective, looked conflicted. That's a legally gray area, Vivian. You'd need to be very careful about methods. About not crossing lines that turn you into what you fought against. I know. And I did. The temptation to become Harper, to use these skills for personal gain, to destroy people who merely annoyed me rather than truly harmed others, was real and seductive. Power was addictive. Revenge was intoxicating. We'd need rules, I continued. Clear criteria for who deserves intervention. Evidence of real harm, not just professional rivalry. Multiple victims, not isolated incidents. And we work within legal boundaries, even if we push up against them. Marcus nodded slowly. A network. People who've been burned, who understand the system, who can help others navigate it. I like it. Catherine's family started a foundation in her name, Sarah added. They're focused on workplace safety and holding corporations accountable for toxic environments. They might be interested in partnering. The idea crystallized as we talked. Not revenge for hire, but protection. Strategic support for people facing workplace predators. A way to channel what I'd learned, what I'd become, into something protective rather than purely destructive. We'd need to be careful, Rita warned. Word gets out about something like this, you become a target. People with power and secrets don't like being threatened. Let them come, I said and meant it. I've already been destroyed once. I know how to survive it. And more importantly, I know how to fight back. We spent the next 2 hours planning, discussing structure, methods, safeguards, how to vet cases, how to gather evidence legally, how to protect ourselves and our clients. By the time we left, we had the skeleton of something real, something necessary, something that could make a difference for people who thought they were powerless against corporate predators. I walked home through Manhattan's gleaming canyons of steel and glass, each building housing thousands of careers, thousands of ambitions, thousands of potential Harpers and potential victims. The city felt different now. Not threatening, but full of possibility. I'd been broken and rebuilt, destroyed and resurrected. And in that process, I discovered something fundamental about power. It's not about position or title or money. It's about understanding systems, reading people, seeing patterns others miss. Harper had that power and used it to destroy. I had that same power now. The difference was intention. She destroyed for ego and advancement. I would protect for justice and balance. At least, that's what I told myself. Time would reveal whether I could maintain that distinction, or whether the darkness Harper had awakened in me would eventually consume the light. I reached my apartment building and paused, looking up at the illuminated windows stretching toward the sky. Somewhere in this city, Harper was sedated and broken, wrestling with the wreckage of her life. I felt no satisfaction in that thought anymore. No triumph, just a profound weariness with the cost of victory. She tried to destroy me. I'd made her destroy herself. We were both different people now than we'd been a year ago. She was diminished, shattered. I was hardened, dangerous. Neither transformation was entirely good. Inside my apartment, I poured another whiskey and stood at my own window, looking at the same skyline from a different angle. My phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "Ms. Cole, my name is Jennifer Martinez. I was recently fired after reporting my supervisor for harassment. I've heard you might be able to help. The company is burying my complaint and threatening legal action if I speak publicly. I don't know what to do. I'm scared and alone and I've lost everything. Please, if there's any way you can help." I stared at the message for a long moment. This was the choice. The fork in the road. I could ignore it, focus on rebuilding my own career, staying safe, avoiding the risks that came with fighting other people's battles. Or I could respond, use what Harper had taught me, what I'd become in fighting her, to help someone else who was where I'd been 6 months ago. Powerless, terrified, alone. I typed a response, "Jennifer, I can help. But I need you to understand something first. Fighting back is hard, scary, and costly. It requires patience, strategy, and willingness to face your worst moments repeatedly. If you're ready for that, I have resources and people who can guide you. If you're not ready, that's okay too. There's no shame in choosing survival over justice. Think about it and let me know." I hit send and waited. 5 minutes later, "I'm ready. Whatever it takes. He's done this to others. Someone has to stop him." And there it was. Another Harper. Another victim. Another war. I forwarded her information to Marcus and Rita with a simple message. New case. Let's dig. 6 months later, I stood in the same office, looking at the same skyline, but everything had changed. Jennifer's case had been successful. Her supervisor was fired, the company settled, and 3 other women came forward with similar stories. The pattern was exposed. Consequences delivered. Word spread quietly through networks of women in corporate America. If you were being targeted, if you had evidence, if you needed help fighting back, there were people who could assist. Not publicly, not officially, but effectively. We'd helped 4 more cases since Jennifer. Each one different. Each one requiring careful strategy and legal precision. Each one ending with a predator exposed and victims validated. I wasn't naive enough to think we were changing the entire system. But we were changing individual lives. And sometimes that was enough. Harper remained in treatment. I'd heard through mutual connections that she was making progress, finally confronting the pathology that had driven her to destroy others. Part of me hoped she'd find peace. Part of me didn't care. She was no longer my concern. My office phone rang. "Miss Cole, there's someone here to see you. Says it's urgent. Send them in." The woman who entered was young, maybe 25, eyes red from crying but jaw set with determination I recognized. "I'm Emma Chun," she said. "I work at Sterling Finance. My supervisor is taking credit for my work, gaslighting me about conversations we've had, and I think she's setting me up to take the fall for her mistakes. I've documented everything, but I don't know how to fight someone with that much power. Someone told me you might be able to help." I gestured for her to sit. "Tell me everything from the beginning. Don't leave anything out, even details that seem insignificant." As Emma spoke, I took notes, seeing the familiar pattern emerge. Another predator, another victim, another opportunity to use the darkness Harper had awakened in me for something resembling good. When Emma finished, I looked at her directly. "I can help you, but you need to understand, this will be hard. You'll have to be patient, strategic, and stronger than you think you are. Your supervisor will fight back. Things may get worse before they get better. Are you prepared for that?" Emma met my eyes. "I've already lost my peace of mind and my sense of safety at work. I have nothing left to lose and everything to gain. Yes, I'm prepared." I smiled. Not the cold smile Harper used to wear. Something warmer, but still edged with steel. "Then let's begin." As Emma left with instructions and contact information for Marcus and Rita, I returned to the window. The skyline stretched endlessly, each building an ecosystem of power, ambition, and sometimes predation. Harper had taught me how to navigate that world, how to see the moves before they happened, how to turn someone's strengths into weapons against themselves. She'd intended to destroy me with that knowledge. Instead, she'd armed me. I thought about the quote I'd seen once. Be careful when fighting monsters, lest you become one yourself. Maybe I had become a monster. But I was a monster who protected people from other monsters. A necessary evil in a system that too often protected predators over victims. I picked up my phone and texted Marcus. New case. Sterling Finance. Supervisor gaslighting junior employee. Pattern looks familiar. Star deep background. His response came immediately. On it. This one's personal. Sterling is where Amanda was destroyed. Time for some poetic justice. I looked at my reflection in the window one more time. The woman looking back wasn't the naive executive who'd walked down an aisle 6 months ago, celebrating a promotion. She was someone harder. Someone who'd been destroyed and rebuilt herself from the rubble. Someone who'd looked into the darkness of corporate warfare and learned to weaponize it. Harper had tried to destroy me. Instead, she'd created something she should have feared from the beginning. Not a victim. Not even a survivor. A queen. And queens don't need to scream. We just need to win. I whispered it to my reflection, to the city, to every Harper out there who thought they could destroy people without consequence. I'm not your victim. I'm your reckoning. Then I turned back to my desk and got to work. There were monsters to hunt, and I'd learned from the best how to destroy them. The war Harper started was over. She'd lost, but the larger war, against every corporate predator who thought power meant immunity, had just begun. And this time, the predators were being hunted by someone who knew all their tricks, because she'd survived the worst of them. I was Vivian Cole. I'd been destroyed. I'd risen. And now I helped others do the same. Harper's legacy wasn't my destruction. It was my evolution. From victim to survivor to something more dangerous than she'd ever imagined. A protector with a predator's skills. The most dangerous kind of enemy, the one you created yourself.